Hey, it's Vanessa, the Crafty Gemini, and in this video tutorial, I'm teaching you how to make this pencil pod zippered pouch. It's cute, it's simple, and as you can see, there are no raw edges anywhere on the inside or out. So let's get right to it. You'll want to choose two different fabrics, one for the exterior, one for the lining. Press everything nice and flat so you have no creases. Then I want you to cut your exterior fabric to one rectangle that measures 8 inches by 9 inches. For the lining fabric, we'll cut two rectangles that measure 4 inches by 9 inches. To give our pouch a little bit of body, I'll be using a light fusible batting. So I take the exterior piece of fabric, put it on top so that the adhesive side of the batting is touching the wrong side of the fabric, bring it to my ironing board, and then fuse the two layers together using the heat of my iron. Now that that's fused, let's recap the pieces we need to make the pouch. The exterior that's fused, two rectangles for the lining, and I like to use a 14-inch No. 3 craft zipper. Now with the sewing machine, I'm going to change off the universal presser foot and put on the zipper foot. So if you have one of these for your machine, go ahead and put it on. Then let's prep the exterior. So I have it turned on my work table here so that the 9-inch dimension is running left to right horizontally in front of me. Take the craft zipper and you're going to want to flip it so that the teeth are facing down onto the pretty side of your fabric. So then I'm lining it up along the top edge of the fabric here. Make sure that you leave a little bit of zipper tape hanging off on each end. I probably could have centered mine a little bit more so I have an even distribution of that excess zipper tape, but you can place your clips here and then we're going to sew with about 1/4 inch seam allowance along this top edge. So first, this is going to be a basting stitch, so I'm going to lengthen the stitch length to about 3mm stitch length. And remember to have the zipper foot on. The sewing machine needle, I'm using a size 80-12 universal, and I'm using an all-purpose 100% polyester thread for stitching this down. Now I'm not using the full zipper foot seam allowance here because I need to attach another layer of fabric. So we're just sewing about 1/4 inch, a skinny seam allowance just to connect these two layers. Now you'll take one of your lining rectangle pieces, line it up with the 9-inch edge on top, make sure it's the pretty side of the fabric down on top of the zipper, okay? So the zipper's in between your fabric layers, and we're gonna go back now to the sewing machine, shorten our stitch length to about 2mm in length, and we're gonna stitch straight over top. So we're stitching in the same area we just sewed, but this time we're using the full seam allowance of the zipper foot. Take your time here, make sure the raw edges are all aligned, and stitch straight down this edge. Next, we give it a good press, so I like to press just as it was sewn first. Then I push the lining fabric up and away from the zipper, press that again. If you have a wooden tailor's clapper, use that because it helps you keep everything nice and flat. Then I push both fabrics away and down from the zipper teeth and press it from the pretty side of the exterior fabric again. Clap it if you have one, and now we're ready to top stitch. So we're going to be top stitching right along this edge here. At the sewing machine, because this is top stitching, we're going to lengthen the stitch length to 3mm, and then we're going to position this so that the right side edge of the zipper foot is running along the left side edge of the zipper teeth. Okay, so visually look to see what I'm doing here, and this is going to give us the exact seam allowance we need so that we can top stitch straight down this edge. Now that the top stitching looks good on both sides, let's grab the bottom edge of the exterior fabric and fold it up to match it with the top of the zipper. So I'm going to place some clips along the top right here. Remember that for this first seam, we're using a 3mm stitch length, and we're only sewing using about 1/4 inch or even a little narrower than that seam allowance, okay? Once that's done, we're ready to add the next lining piece. With the already attached lining piece facing pretty side up, go ahead and position the other one pretty side down. All right, place some clips along that edge, and then here we are going to sew using the full zipper foot seam allowance. So first we shorten the stitch down to 2mm because this is a construction stitch, and then we're going to align it so the right side edge of the zipper foot is right in line with all of my fabric layers, and stitch straight down this edge. Just as before, you want to press everything down and away from the zipper teeth. Use your clapper to help you set everything nice and flat. And now in order to open this up, you got to open up the zipper because we still have to do some top stitching on this last remaining side so it matches the first side you did. So right here, I'm lifting up at the zipper teeth, push the fabrics down and away, press them again, and then we'll be ready to head over to the sewing machine to do our last line of top stitching. All right, this can be a little tricky, especially if you used a shorter zipper than I did here. But remember to set your stitch length to 3 millimeters because this is top stitching. Then you want to have the lining sides facing out so that when you place this under your zipper foot, you're stitching onto the exterior side of the fabric like this so that you're seeing your top stitching on what will be the outside of your pouch. Go ahead and trim your threads. Now we want to stitch up the lining. So go ahead and close the zipper about 3/4 of the way or so. Grab the two lining rectangles, put them pretty sides touching so that they match up along that 9-inch edge, and then place some pins. Before we can sew this up, we need to leave an opening here so that we can flip our whole pouch right side out. So I'm going to make a mark right here and right here. This is about 4 inches, 4.5 inches or so is a good enough space to leave open. So now we're going to start at the top, stop at the beginning of the mark, pick up on the next mark, and finish off at the edge, making sure that that area in the middle is left unstitched. At this point, we're also done with the zipper foot, so you can remove that and go ahead and put back on your regular universal presser foot for regular sewing. First, I shorten my stitch length to 2 millimeters. Then I'm using a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, backstitching at the beginning and ends of that first portion, skipping over that middle area, backstitching here, and finishing off with backstitching again. It's very important you backstitch at the beginning and ends of each of those starting and stopping points, making sure that you have that center area unstitched. Now at the ironing board, we want to press this so that the zipper and the seam in the lining runs right down the middle. So I do this from the lining side, finger crease the seam allowance you just sewed, open, like this, and you'll see that the center chunk that's unstitched just wants to follow in line with the rest of it, so it makes it really simple. Give it a really, really good press, but double and triple check that everything is nice and centered, all right? Because this is going to determine where that zipper falls in the finished pouch, and we want it running down the middle. So press it from this one side here, give it a good press, and set it with the clapper if you have one. Now we can trim away any of the excess zipper tape that's hanging off the edges. Make sure that that zipper pull is somewhere on the inside, otherwise you won't have a working zipper. Then I made a 4-inch diameter circle template out of just regular plain paper, and I'm using that as a template to curve the outer corners on both short ends of my pouch. So line up the top of the circle with the top of the edge there, of the short edge, and then take a pen and make your mark so that you have a nice consistent curve that you'll be able to repeat on the other side as well. Then cut right along the lines that you drew. You are going to cut through all the layers, and if you're seeing it there, that's right, the lining should be a little bit smaller than the exterior fabric layers. This will help it lie nice and flat on the inside. Now I'm changing my needle position over because I want to sew a scant 1/4 of an inch seam allowance, which is basically closer to 1/8 of an inch than 1/4 of an inch. I want to start off in the edge. You're going to backstitch at the beginning. Then the smoother, more consistent, and nice and curved seam that you can sew here, the better your pouch will look on the ends, on the exterior fabric, okay? So try to be as smooth and consistent with this curved line of stitching as you can. Make sure to backstitch at the end when you come off the edge as well. Trim your threads, and it should look something like this. I have a narrow 1/4 of an inch seam allowance, and that looks pretty good. Flip this over to expose the other short side, and you're going to sew that seam the same way we just did. All right, that looks pretty good. Now flip it to this lining side, reach in through the opening, and you'll want to flip the whole thing right side out through there. The first flip is just to expose the lining. The second flip, you're going to want to reach into whatever bit of your zipper is partially open so that you can unzip it further and then flip the whole thing right side out. Poke out as much of that fabric as you can, especially along the curves, and then let's give it a really good press. All right, look how cute that looks. Now we have one more thing to do, and that is to stitch up the hole that we still have in the lining. So I like to just kind of pinch the 2 layers together. I don't really use pins for such a small area. I just pinch the 2 fabric layers together, and I stitch with about a 3 millimeter stitch length straight stitch, super close to that outer edge, making sure to backstitch at the beginning and at the end to secure that opening shut. Then I open it up, with my fingertips push the lining fabric all the way inside, around those curves especially, give it a really good press, and that's it. Your pencil pod zipper pouch is now complete. I hope you all enjoyed this video tutorial and that you'll give it a try. If you do, let me know in the comments below what you thought about it. As you can see, it's a great scrap buster, and I hope you give it a try. Thanks again for watching this video. Don't forget to subscribe if you want more step-by-step free video tutorials from me, and I will see y'all in the next video.